The second I entered, his eyes rolled with arrogance. But his father-in-law muttered, "That's him." And suddenly, silence swallowed the room. He didn't know why I had come. I wasn't there to talk. I was there to reclaim what he stole. That night shattered everything. The house wasn't loud. It was worse than that. It was filled with the kind of silence where everyone wants to speak, but no one wants to be the first to break. Then Elijah did. He leaned back in the chair, glass in hand, smile too wide for the moment. Well, look who finally decided to show up. Thomas, the ghost of the family. The words landed heavier than a shout. A few chuckled. Not because it was funny, but because they were used to laughing at me. Dean shifted on the couch, legs crossed like he belonged more than I ever did. Marla's eyes narrowed, cutting sharper than any blade. She lifted her hand, pointed at me without hesitation. This whole disaster started with him. Don't pretend you don't know it. I hadn't spoken a single word, yet somehow I was already guilty. Even the floorboards creaked under me like the house itself wanted me out. And then, from the back of the room, Dean's father muttered, not loud, not soft, but enough. That's him. That was all it took. The air locked in place. Everyone's gaze dug into me, like my presence alone was a crime. My name is Thomas Hale. I'm 26. I've always been the one people look through. Not at... Growing up, I learned early. The louder you speak in this family, the quicker you get heard. But when your voice never mattered, you stop wasting it. They called it being quiet. Truth is, it was survival, because every time something broke, I got blamed. Every time something failed, I was the excuse. And when I tried defending myself, it only made their laughter louder. So I stopped. I turned silence into a mask, then into a habit, then into a weapon. And tonight, I didn't walk in to talk. I walked in to reclaim what was stolen. They didn't know it yet. But by the end of this night, the silence they forced on me would be the same silence that would bury their lies. Family members introduced. The room was a theater, everyone in their role. Elijah Hale, my older brother, 30. Charismatic in public, cruel in private. He always had that grin that made strangers trust him, while I knew the rot underneath. Marla, my sister, 28. Sharp tongue, quick to wound. She wore anger like perfume, sprayed heavy so no one could ignore it. Gerald Hale, my father. The judge, always handing out verdicts. But his scales were never balanced. They always tilted against me. Lorna Hale, my mother. She didn't argue. She cried. But tears are a weak shield when the whole family chooses sides. Dean, my sister's husband. He wasn't blood, but acted like he owned it all. Every word from his mouth dripped arrogance. Samuel, Dean's father. The shadow in the corner. The kind of man who said little, but whose mutters carried weight. Their voices overlapped, cutting into each other like knives clashing on metal. I didn't need introductions. I'd lived this war all my life. But there was something else. A rhythm in the room I couldn't ignore. Somebody was hiding more than anger. And I could smell it. The scent of secrets. The topic finally cracked open. Money. It always comes back to money. The family house. The land my grandfather built with his bare hands. The inheritance I was promised, then quietly erased. Elijah leaned forward, voice steady like he'd rehearsed this. You were never supposed to get a piece of it, Thomas. You don't deserve it. Dean chimed in with a laugh that didn't fit the tension. You should be thankful we've even let you in the room tonight. I stayed quiet. Not because I was scared. Because silence makes liars nervous. Then Dean slipped. His tongue ran too fast. You weren't supposed to find out this soon. The room stiffened. Eyes darted. Not supposed to find out what?
That's when I knew. Tonight wasn't just about inheritance. There was a bigger truth rotting underneath.
Sides formed quick. Elijah with Dean. Marla shouting louder than both combined. Father didn't shout. He never did. But his silence always carried judgment, and it landed heavier than any insult. Mother tried whispering, hands trembling. Please, not this again. Not tonight. Her words vanished in the noise. Fis Marla snapped suddenly, voice shaking with something crueler than anger. He was never supposed to be here anyway. He was the mistake child. You all know it. Time slowed. The words hit harder than any fist. I didn't break. I didn't argue. I just spoke one line, steady, controlled. Funny thing about mistakes, they don't stay quiet forever. For the first time, they looked uneasy. Memory is cruel. It doesn't ask permission before flooding back. I was 17 again, working late shifts, handing every dollar to Elijah so he could pay off debts he'd stacked with gambling and parties. Father told me it was my duty. Be a good son, Thomas. Do it for the family. I signed away my share of the family business at 19. Didn't fight it. Didn't argue, because the way Father looked at me, like saying no would erase my existence, was enough to silence me. And then there was Dean. I'll never forget the dinner. He mocked me in front of a table full of strangers, called me the extra hale nobody asked for. The room burst into laughter. Even my mother. She covered her mouth like it wasn't real laughter. But I saw it. It's that sound. Their laughter at my expense never left me. And as I stood in that living room years later, I caught Father's eyes. And for the first time, I saw it. Guilt. He knew. He'd always known. The secret ripped out before anyone could stop it. Dean shouted at Elijah, "We covered for you! We protected you! Don't act innocent now!" The words hung like smoke. Turns out it wasn't just inheritance. Elijah had forged documents, stolen money under Father's name, committed fraud that could have destroyed the whole family. And they all knew. They all hid it, by pinning the blame on me. I already knew. I'd pieced it together years ago, but silence was patience. I looked Elijah in the eye, steady as stone. I wasn't blind. I wasn't deaf. I was silent, because I wanted you to believe you were safe. His face cracked for the first time. The room exploded. Shouting, pleading, accusing. Marla screamed until her voice broke. Dean stormed toward me, fists clenched, until Samuel barked, "Sit down." Even he knew the storm couldn't be stopped now. Father finally raised his voice. The man who never shouted. But it wasn't defense. It was fear. Mother cried, like the sound could wash away the truth. But tears don't erase paper trails. And me? I stood calm. I let the chaos eat itself alive. Then, when the noise hit its loudest, I spoke. I gave you all my silence. Tonight, I give you the truth. And the shock came from the one place I least expected. My mother whispered through tears, "Stop, he's telling the truth." The room froze. The first time in my life she'd ever stood beside me. I didn't storm out. Storms are noisy. I walked out slow, steady, like I was finally carrying nothing. Behind me, their voices tangled into chaos. Anger, denial, begging, but none of it touched me anymore. At the doorway, Marla's hand brushed my arm. Her voice cracked, softer than I'd ever heard. "Thomas." I didn't mean it. Not like that. I looked at her, not with anger, with clarity. You meant it every time. Tonight you just said it out loud. I walked into the night, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt free. The cold air met my skin like a blessing. For years I carried their weight, their blame, their shame, their silence. But out there, under the dark sky, none of it belonged to me anymore. I don't know if they'll regret what they've done. I don't know if they'll ever see me differently, but that's no longer mine to worry about. For the first time, I breathed without their shadow. And for the first time, I whispered to myself, I don't carry their weight anymore. That was my revenge. Not destroying them, but freeing myself. If you were in my place, would you forgive them, or would you walk away forever? Tell me in the comments. Your voice matters here. Like if you've ever carried blame that wasn't yours. Comment your story. Someone here will understand. Subscribe if you felt Thomas's silence and his freedom, because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is finally walk away.